Mold is certainly an issue that needs to be addressed, but the scare and hysteria that ensued when this became an issue has somewhat subsided. When this issue came to light in the late 1990s, it received national attention, as some TV news magazines ran some scary stories. Once that frenzy began, it gained a life of its own and took on a whole new meaning. Today, cooler heads generally prevail, and we seem to deal with mold more reasonably. Certainly, if mold is discovered in a property, it must be addressed. Mold grows when mold spores, microscopic particles present almost everywhere, land on surfaces with the right conditions, moisture, warmth, and a food source like wood, drywall, carpet, or fabric. In homes, mold often develops in areas with high humidity, water leaks, or poor ventilation, such as bathrooms, kitchens, basements, or around windows. Once spores settle in a damp environment, they begin to multiply and form visible colonies. Mold can start growing within 24 to 48 hours of moisture exposure, making it critical to address leaks or water damage quickly. Without proper drying and remediation, mold can spread and damage property, cause odors, and lead to health issues, especially for people with allergies or respiratory conditions. Suppose your seller tells you during the listing process that a year ago she learned that she had mold. She discovered some moist walls in the bathroom one day and learned upon opening the wall that there was a slight leak and some serious mold. She went through the proper process, cleaned it all out, treated the mold, and now it is fixed, and she has a copy of the clear mold inspection. This is certainly a material fact and could still be a latent defect. What if the mold becomes apparent again in the same or even in a different area? Let's change the conditions. Assume that an owner discovered a leak in his property and went through the proper necessary steps to remove and remediate all damaged items, clean and dry the area, treated for any possible mold, and fix the property so that nothing seems apparent. Mold was never found. Now, 6 months later, he wants to sell. Must he disclose the leak and what was done? Deemed a material fact by the buyer, so yes, the seller is obligated to disclose it. Tell the buyer right at the beginning of the deal. Let her inspect the property knowing about the problem, and let her decide how, if, to proceed. If the buyer cancels now, after learning of the leak, what do you think her reaction would be if she learned after close of escrow? A buyer that cancels as a result of disclosure is typically happy that they did not proceed with the sale. The same buyer that learns of the problem after close of escrow will feel very different about the issue and possibly pursue legal action against the agents, brokers, and seller. Make sure all the remediation paperwork is available to the buyer and that if there has been no issues since the repair, say so. Another issue possibly related to mold exists when the buyer conducts an inspection on the property, and the inspector identifies conditions that might be conducive to mold growth, although not always visible. Here are some common areas where mold might be present, yet the seller might not know. Under a sink. Most sinks are within a cabinet, and a small leak at the valve or the connection behind the wall might cause mold that is hidden. Such leaks might occur from a poor connection or a pipe that had been damaged in some way during construction or remodeling. Behind the refrigerator at the water ice maker connection. The source could be the valve, or the line, or the connection to either the valve or the connection to the refrigerator. Depending on where the leak is located, the water and the resulting mold might not be visible. Most people do not move the refrigerator out that often, and if so, only to clean behind it. Thus, a slow drip into the wall could cause mold that no one sees. A common flood issue is when the seller replaces the refrigerator. The valve in the water box in the wall might have been in the open position for as long as the refrigerator was there. Now the valve is closed, a new refrigerator and line are installed, the valve is opened, and the new refrigerator is pushed back. That valve, weakened over the years, now fails. If there is any good news here, the good news is that it is often visible right away. The problem is solved and the damage repaired. Worse, almost, is when the valve or something just leaks a bit. It drips into the wall, and over months or years, mold grows. Behind the washing machine. Again, we have a water box, now with 2 hoses, and often the drain line. Any combination of one of them dripping slowly behind the washer can cause mold over time. AC condenser drip pan. This is a pan that typically sits underneath the AC condenser box. In many homes, that unit is in the attic or in a closet somewhere in the house. The pan catches moisture that drips off the condenser coil, and that water should drain into a pipe or hose that is typically routed to the exterior of the home. Without proper routine maintenance, that pipe or hose could get clogged. If so, the water in the pan could either sit and rust the pan, or could overflow the pan and drip somewhere into the carpet, drywall, molding, etc. Sometimes the owner will see, feel, or even smell the moisture and remedy it. Sometimes the pan will drip for years and no one sees it. This is a major source for mold in a property. Any other appliance, such as water heater, dishwasher, water treatment unit, could leak over time and cause problems. Window and door frames could be the source of moisture and mold. Poor construction, inferior materials that occurred at construction could cause hidden water seepage anytime it rains, or when the outside sprinklers run, or from any means. Once the water is introduced to the area and it seeps into the window or door frame and is hidden, it most likely will result in mold. By the time the mold is visible somewhere in the window or door frame, mold is extensive underneath and within the frame. Beneath the shower. A stall shower is installed with a pan below the floor of the shower. That pan is designed to catch any water that might seep through grout lines or edges within the shower. While there are specific products that combined create a shower pan, most times the pan is built by the contractor using certain materials. That design could fail, or through faulty construction, water could seep under or around the pan. While the water might not be visible, the combination of moisture, heat, and darkness is a recipe for mold to form. In many of the above cases, the seller might be aware of the problem. Once they become aware of it, the seller would be obligated to disclose that mold has occurred on the property. To summarize, any water-related issue, even if no mold was ever found, must be disclosed. Let's look at a common scenario. A buyer and seller enter into a contract, and the buyer conducts a property inspection on day 4. During that inspection, it seems apparent that a water-related issue occurred or is present behind the washing machine. The inspector notes that at some point, water dripped or poured down the outside wall, staining the wall. Now the sheetrock seems moist or damaged, and the inspector suggests a further inspection that might require the wall to be opened, or the inspector's probe meter shows moisture inside the wall. As a result, what are the buyer's options? The buyer should hire a mold inspector to determine if there is any mold present, and if that inspector requires opening the wall, the buyer must obtain the seller's permission. Unless mandated by statute or rule or contractual terms, a seller is not obligated to conduct any inspections during the buyer's due diligence. If the buyer determines that more or further inspections are required, that is the buyer's obligation. Another matter is the timing. If on day 4, the inspector suggests a mold inspection, that might take a few days to arrange. Be mindful of the timing and expiration of the buyer's inspection period and seek an extension via a written addendum if needed. While the buyer must conduct their own inspections, they would still have the right to ask the seller to remedy the mold, if any. Many brokers have a mold disclosure addendum with language alerting the buyers as to the dangers of mold. Those brokers ask their agents to have their buyers and sellers sign the addendum. The challenge occurs when there is a co-broke sale, and one agent wants the other client to sign their broker's form. Often, it is the listing agent, wanting the buyer's agent to have the buyer sign the form. Many brokers ask their agents not to do that, not to have their client sign another broker's form. As a listing broker, if you require the buyer to sign your broker's form, that should be included as part of the contract or counteroffer.